All right, good morning, everyone. Can we all stand as we open this morning's proceedings with prayer? As I call on Mr. Gibson Charles to lead us in this segment.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here this morning. Catholics, please sign yourselves. Dear Father, we come to you this morning, thanking you for waking each one of us to experience yet another sunrise. The favor you bestow upon us, which allows us to experience your grace and compassion, is truly appreciated. We also thank you for bringing each and every single one of us here safely, accident-free, and for returning us safely. May you search the hearts of each of us and comfort those who are secretly battling with any personal issues. My Lord, we pray this gathering today will be productive and a successful one. May we continue to unite as a member organization, finding solutions for peace and harmony. Let us go through this meeting with growth and development in mind, and I pray the Federation will continue to advocate on behalf of its members with integrity and that we maintain relationships built on love and respect. My Lord, I say thank you for my co-workers who make each day an enjoyable day at work, and thank you for everyone in attendance, including the board members who show great support by being here today, and also by attending our monthly breakfast meetings. May you reign as the kings of kings over this federation, its members, and this meeting. I pray in deep reverence in the mighty name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you, Mr. Charles. If we could remain standing for the national anthem of St. Lucia. Okay, I think we may have to sing it instead. On the count of 3, 1, 2, 3. Sons and daughters of St. Lucia, love the land that gave us birth, land of beaches, hills and valleys, fairest isle of all the earth. Wheresoever you may roam, love, oh love, our island home. God when nations battle for this Helen of the West. God will this when strife and discord dim the children's toil and rest. Dawns at last a brighter day, stretches out a brand new day. May the good Lord bless our island, guard us a stronghold and harm. May our people live united, strong in soul and strong in arm. Justice, truth, and charity, our ideal forever be. You may have your seats. I think we struggled there a bit at some point. Yeah, we've been playing too many instrumentals. That's so allow me to recognize Mr. Vern Gill, the President of the St. Lucia Employers Federation, members of the Board of Directors, our distinguished guest speakers, Dr. Winston Anderson, Executive Chairman, Sandals Resorts International, Mrs. Deborah Tobrier, Managing Director of True Value Group of Companies, Mr. Marvin Edgar, Program Officer, Workforce Development Center, Mr. Dinesh Daswani, Innovation Hub Manager of Optronics, Ms. Sonita Daniel, the Chief Executive Officer of Export St. Lucia, Mr. Perry Thomas, Executive Director, St. Lucia TVET Council, representatives of our sponsor organizations, members of the St. Lucia Employers Federation, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning and welcome to the St. Lucia Employers Federation's 65th Annual General Meeting. Today we gather under the theme, Managing the Modern Workplace, What Managing People Requires Now. And today's AGM is made possible by Platinum sponsor CBN St. Lucia, Gold sponsors Lubeco and Fun to Sea Island, Silver sponsors CIBC and IGY Marinas, and of course our support sponsors CO Williams, Group of Companies, and Beachcomber Limited. So my name is Joshua Santemi. I will be your Master of Ceremonies for today's proceedings, and we kick off the AGM with welcome remarks by Mr. Vern Gill, the President of the St. Lucia Employers Federation. Help me welcome him.
It seems all the male employees at the Federation now are tall. Welcome, morning to everybody. I think we will have to ask the Jean Baptiste to put a training together for us to do things St. Lucian, to learn the anthem, to learn about all things St. Lucian. Yeah. Welcome. It's a beautiful day today. Yeah. I'm happy. Today we are well, not well within, but we are keeping to the bylaws, which require us to have an annual general meeting within 3 months of the end of the financial year, which ended on the 31st of March. So today's the 2nd of July. I think that's the first time we've done so as far back as I can remember. So I'm happy that we be able to do that. I'm happy to see so many persons present. And the tone, I believe, is set for a good day. So thank you, Mr. Master of Ceremonies. Let me acknowledge we have a keynote speaker, that's Dr. Anderson, and we have a featured speaker, Mrs. Deborah Tobrier. And there are a few other persons that were acknowledged, Sunita, Daniel, the gentleman from Optronics, I don't remember his name.
Mr. Gill, can you project your voice a bit, please?
Okay, I will.
Do you like to record?
I will. I will, yeah. But, and I see some familiar faces and good friends. So, I will move into my remarks to say good day to everybody, fellow directors, distinguished guests, employers, colleagues, friends. I stand for the last time, I think, to address you in my capacity as President of the St. Lucia Employers Federation. I assumed this position in late 2006 and have served continuously for the last 20 years as President of the Federation. In the we have to take out this one. In the 65 years of the existence of the Federation, our commencement date is the 20th of October, 1961. I am the 5th president of the Federation, so it gives you a sense of the nature of the organization that we have. We actually registered as a trade union, and so we are a trade union of employers. And if you look around at other trade unions, you realize that the leadership of the trade unions don't change very frequently. So that is, and what has been the nature of our organization. But I believe it's time for me to go. I tried doing so about 8 years ago, and the members did not allow me to, but it's time. As I reflect on my 10 years as president of the St. Lucia Employers Federation, one truth stands out above all the others. The workplace has changed more in the last 5 years than it has, one may have expected. I found myself reflecting not only on what we have accomplished, but on how profoundly these changes have reinforced the complexities of managing a business, not because people have become more difficult, but because the world around them has changed. When I first assumed this role, many of our discussions centered on wages, compliance, industrial relations, and recruitment. These conversations remain important. However, today they are no longer sufficient. The modern workplace demands something more. It demands leaders who can navigate complexity, embrace change, and lead people, not simply manage processes. In keeping with the theme of this annual general meeting, I've been reflecting on a question of why has managing people become so much more difficult? I do not think it is that because people have become more difficult. I believe that it is because the workplace has fundamentally changed, while many of our management practices have not. For decades, organizations were built on hierarchy. Employees were expected to follow instructions. Supervisors monitored performance. And loyalty was oftentimes measured by the number of years someone remained with an organization. That model no longer defines today's workplace. Today's employees are better informed, more connected, more aware of their value, and less willing to remain in environments where they feel unheard or undervalued. Whether we agree with every expectation is beside the point. As leaders, our responsibility is to understand this reality and to respond to it wisely. Managers must now become coaches as much as supervisors. They must know how to develop talent, resolve conflict constructively, and recognize that employees are motivated differently. The most effective leaders are those who understand that productivity is not created through pressure alone. It is created when people feel capable, trusted, connected to a purpose. Managing today's workplace also requires a different understanding of performance. For many years, we rewarded people for what they knew. Today, we must value how quickly they can learn, because knowledge becomes outdated faster than ever before. The organizations that will succeed are not those with the smartest people, but those with the strongest learning cultures. As employers, we must stop asking only, how do we retain our best employees? We should also ask, what kind of workplace makes people want to stay? That means investing in leadership development and not just technical training. Training can no longer be viewed as an occasional activity. Learning must become part of the culture of every organization. We cannot expect employees to adapt to new realities if we are unwilling to invest in their development. That reality brings a new responsibility for employers. Investing in equipment is no longer enough. We must invest just as deliberately in continuous learning. The shelf life of skills is becoming shorter. Employees who stop learning will struggle, but organizations that stop developing their people will struggle even more. More importantly, managers should coach instead of simply supervise. It means giving employees constructive feedback instead of waiting for annual performance reviews. It means recognizing that flexibility, where operationally possible, is no longer viewed as a privilege by many employees, but as part of a healthy and productive working environment. People rarely leave organizations because of hard work. More often they leave because they no longer feel valued, no longer see opportunities to grow, or no longer trust the leadership around them. The modern employee is not simply looking for a salary. They're looking for purpose. They want less rigidity where possible, transparency with leadership, opportunities to develop new skills, and confidence that their contribution matters. Meeting those expectations is not about giving in to every demand. It is about building workplaces founded on mutual respect, accountability, and trust. It also means understanding that different generations bring different expectations. Younger employees often seek purpose and opportunities to grow. More experienced employees bring institutional knowledge, stability, and wisdom. Strong organizations create opportunities for these generations to learn from each other rather than compete with one another. One lesson I've learned through the years of engaging with businesses across the island is that policies alone do not create strong workplaces. Culture does. As employers, we must also recognize that leadership today requires greater emotional intelligence than ever before. Managing people is no longer about supervision alone. It is about understanding each other, working side by side, supporting employee well-being, resolving conflict constructively, and creating environments where innovation is encouraged rather than feared. The organizations that will thrive over the next decade will not necessarily be the largest or the oldest. They will be the ones that learn fastest, adapt quickest, and place people at the center of their transformation. We cannot ignore that today's workplace is more connected, more informed, and more demanding at any other time in our history. The technology is growing at a rapid pace, forcing employers to adapt not only their business models, but also the way they lead, develop, and engage their people. As we witness the rise of artificial intelligence, we must be cognizant that AI is no longer a concept for the future. It is already influencing recruitment, customer service, financial management, logistics, human resources, and decision-making. For many employers, this presents understandable concerns. Will it replace jobs? Will it widen inequality? How do we govern its use responsibly? These are legitimate questions. However, from where I stand, the greater risk is not artificial intelligence itself. The greatest risk is natural resistance to change. Artificial intelligence, automation, and digital transformation are changing almost every industry. But while technology is reshaping jobs, it has also reminded us of something important. The more technology advances, the more valuable, uniquely human qualities become. Throughout history, technology has always changed the nature of work. What distinguishes successful organizations is not whether they adopt new technologies first, but whether they prepare their people to work alongside them. AI should not be viewed solely as a replacement for human effort. It should be seen as a tool that allows people to focus on what machines cannot replicate: judgment, creativity, ethical reasoning, empathy, relationship building, and leadership. 3 weeks ago, at the 114th International Labour Conference of the International Labour Organization in Geneva, the conference adopted a new convention on decent work in the platform economy. This is the first international labor standard specifically addressing work organized through labor platforms. The convention recognizes both the opportunities and the challenges associated with platform work. It seeks to establish a framework to address decent work challenges in the platform economy while recognizing the contribution of digital labor platforms to employment creation, income generation, innovation, entrepreneurship, and formalization. From the employer's perspective, what is critical is that the convention recognizes a fundamental reality. The platform economy includes self-employed and employees and does not impose a presumption of employment. It is left up to our own national legal system to determine employment status according to legislation and establish criteria. On the 29th of April this year, St. Lucia established a National Tripartite Advisory Committee, which is a formal mechanism for social dialogue on matters of interest to employers in St. Lucia. On the 29th of April 2026 as well, St. Lucia also signed the Convention 144, which is on the Tripartite Consultation International Labor Standards Convention. It will enter into force in St. Lucia on the 29th of April 2027. This committee, of which the Employers Federation is a part of, is been a mechanism that we have been asking for the last maybe 30 years or so. And it is quite an achievement that we finally got into realizing the committee. Another significant development in St. Lucia is the engagement of the International Labour Organization in Trinidad to develop a decent work country program for St. Lucia. Decent work is defined as employment that provides fair income, security rights protection, social benefits and opportunities for personal development, and participation in workplace decisions. It's also defined as productive work for women and men in conditions of freedom, equality, security, and human dignity. All of these matters are coming together around the same time. We've actually had 2 meetings already in St. Lucia, one in October last year and one earlier this year in April, sorry. So this is an ongoing process that will happen because the government has signed on to the Decent Work Country program. What it seeks to do is to align our processes with the United Nations Sustainable Development Corporation framework. And so that will be a matter in which, again, the Employers Federation would be asked to participate and to be a part of. And all of this would happen through the social dialogue mechanism as well. So there is a lot of work to be done going forward. Throughout my years at the Federation, I've come to appreciate an important truth. The best industrial relations are built long before there is conflict. When employers communicate openly, involve employees in meaningful conversations, and explain difficult decisions honestly, and treat people with dignity, many workplace disputes never arise. Trust is not built during a crisis. It is built every day before the crisis comes. Looking ahead, I believe the employers who will thrive will be those who embrace 3 principles. First, to lead with clarity. People perform better when they understand not only what they're expected to do, but why it matters. Second, to lead with consistency. Fairness is not about treating everyone identically. It's about applying principles honestly and transparently. And third, to lead with humanity. Businesses exist to generate results, but results are always achieved through people. When we invest in people, people invest in our businesses. As I leave this office, I remain optimistic about the future of work in St. Lucia. We have resilient employers, talented workers, and businesses that continue to innovate despite uncertainty. If we continue to build workplaces based on trust, respect, accountability, and continuous learning, I have every confidence that our organizations will not simply adapt to change, but they will lead to change. In closing, I would like to thank first Dr. Malcolm Charles, who sought me out to invite me to be part of this organization. And prior to 2006, I was for a few years his vice president. I want to thank my fellow directors. I think everybody's present. Not those just present, but those in the past, and the staff and management of the Federation over the years for the support and confidence that they have placed in me. At this point, as we are today, I would like to recognize Ms. Cornelia Jean-Baptiste, who is our executive director. She's been fearless in bringing about change to this organization. And we can see it's all around us, where we are. We have little things, we have all sorts of things. It's all around us. But the reality is that when we presented our accounts last year, we were showing a deficit of just under $80,000. And we've moved from that point to our financial year end as of March 31st, and we're now showing a surplus of over $30,000. So that didn't just happen. So a lot of hard work went into it, and I want to thank her and her staff. Completely different look these days to the Federation. There are 3 young men around the room. I think members have felt their impact because I think they've met every single member of the Federation over the year. And that hasn't happened in forever, maybe never. And I think the only employer that they didn't meet was Vern Gill Chambers. That's the only employer they didn't meet with. But they met with every member of the organization. I want to thank the members for their continued support. I have been able to, I believe, be of some service to the organization over the years, and I thank everybody for allowing me the opportunity to do so. And before I step away, I would like to thank our featured speakers today who have agreed to participate, and we look forward to spending a good time with them this morning. So thank you again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gill, and thank you for, of course, your service to the organization over the years. We now move into the featured address, which will be delivered by Mrs. Deborah Tobier. She, of course, is a respected business leader and entrepreneur with more than 30 years of experience building, leading, and transforming organizations. As managing director of True Value and its group of companies, She has successfully guided business growth while fostering a culture centered on accountability, collaboration, continuous improvement, and people development. Her leadership journey reflects the resilience, adaptability, and strategic vision required to navigate an ever-evolving business landscape. Rising from humble beginnings, Deborah has built a thriving organization by recognizing that sustainable success is driven not only by strong systems and sound strategy, but also by investing in people and cultivating a positive organizational culture. Her approach to leadership combines operational excellence with a deep commitment to building resilient teams capable of thriving through change and uncertainty. Beyond the workplace, Deborah is passionate about community development and the advancement of future generations through education, mentorship, and youth empowerment initiatives. She believes that effective leadership extends beyond business results and is measured by the ability to inspire others, strengthen communities, and create lasting impact. Her leadership journey demonstrates the power of perseverance, vision, and achieving long-term success. For the featured address, help me welcome to the podium Mrs. Deborah Tobier.
Thank you, Mr. Master of Ceremonies. I really appreciate all the accolades. I'm not sure if I approve that biography. Now, good morning, all. It is indeed a pleasure and a privilege to be here with you today as we gather for the 65th Annual General Meeting of the St. Lucia Employers Federation. Under the timely theme, Managing the Modern Workplace, What Managing People Requires Now. Please permit me, before I proceed, to recognize Mr. Vern Gill, President of the St. Lucia Employers Federation. Congratulations on your long service to the organization, and of course, congratulations to the SLEF on the celebration of their significant milestone 65th anniversary. Also, Ms. Cornelia Jean-Baptiste, Executive Director of the St. Lucia's Employers Federation, members of the Board of Directors, SLEF's Executive Secretariat team, Mr. Winston Anderson, actually Dr., right? Winston Anderson, our keynote speaker today, distinguished colleagues, business leaders, representatives of partner organizations and stakeholder groups, sponsors and supporters of the Federation, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. Okay, organizational culture, people, and resilient leadership. First of all, I must admit that I was both flattered and a little surprised to receive the invitation to speak today. I say this because over the past few years, we have engaged with Ms. Jean-Baptiste and interacted with her in a way that we have expressed our frustrations of the current workplace considerations and ever-changing environment, and what is now required of business leaders to navigate it successfully. So I want to begin by saying that I certainly do not have all the answers. In fact, after 28 years in business for ourselves, this year, October, we'll celebrate 28 years of True Value, and 2.5 years in my parents' business, I would probably say that I have more questions than ever. The workplace environment is changing. Employee expectations are changing. Technology is changing. Leadership itself is changing. And all of us employers are trying to understand how to best navigate these new realities. My own journey as a business owner, I often find myself saying something that causes either great amusement or much to the chagrin of my adult children who are in the family business, that When we started this business, there was only a handful of us. So we had very few individuals, starting with the most humble beginnings. And somehow with far less technology, far fewer systems, and much less sophistication than we have today, we managed to push out an incredible amount of work. I often look back and wonder how we did it. And I look at the complexity of a modern organization and realize that the world we're operating in today is very different from the one we started in almost 3 decades ago. That realization has forced us into a period of self-evaluation and restructuring. Not because we're doing everything wrong, but rather because we recognize that what worked 20 years ago may not necessarily work now or even 20 years into the future. The workplace has already changed. When I think of our own generation and the stories my parents told me, there was a very different attitude to work generally. Many of us grew up hearing stories about even our parents walking all the way to secondary school, right? Walking long distances to work. Working hard because employment represented opportunity. Work meant providing for your family, work meant stability, it meant survival. There was a strong work ethic ingrained in many of us. As I approach my 55th birthday, which is later this month, I find myself reflecting on just how much the environment has changed. Today's workforce operates in a completely different reality. Technology has transformed virtually every aspect of our lives. Information is instantly available, expectations are different, the pace of change is faster than ever. And whether we like it or not, as business leaders, we must understand how these changes affect the people who come through our doors every day. Because if we fail to understand the environment our employees are living in, we will struggle to lead them effectively. The post-COVID reality. I believe one of the biggest shifts occurred during and after COVID. For a period of time, the world quite literally stopped. Countries shut down, people stayed home, many individuals became accustomed to working remotely, others operated in a hybrid environment, and for the first time, millions of people around the world began questioning traditional assumptions about work. What is work? Where should the work take place? How much of life should revolve around work? Those conversations changed the workforce permanently. I do not believe we have fully appreciated just how significant this shift was. We find that in our day-to-day interactions, even with, let's say, foreign-based suppliers, our cargo handling freight forwarder, very much some of the issues that we may experience in our day-to-day operations are expressed by them, and these are in more maybe sophisticated first-world societies. Many people return to the workplace with completely different expectations than the ones with which they left, and employers have been trying to adapt ever since. Now we speak about the social media generation. I think that's a topic on the minds of all business owners. Another reality we cannot ignore is the influence of social media. Our young people today consume enormous amounts of content. Influencers command the attention of literally millions. They present lifestyles that often appear effortless. You scroll through your phone and you see someone spending the day traveling, shopping, exercising, raising their children, working only for a few hours, while apparently generating significant income. Now, whether that is reality or perception isn't really the point. The point is that these messages influence expectations. If a young employee spends hours consuming content that promotes an idealized lifestyle and then enters into a structured workplace with rules, reporting lines, standards, accountability, and expectations, there is naturally going to be some tension. So as employers, I believe we must spend more time trying to understand the influences that shape our workforce. Only then can we begin addressing the challenges that many of us are experiencing: high turnover, disengagement, lack of commitment, and difficulty connecting employees to organizational values and standards. The critical thinking challenge. Another issue I've observed over the past decade or so is what I would describe as a reduction in analytical thinking and problem-solving skills. We often hear the phrase, common sense is not so common. And I find myself thinking about that phrase in a lot of the scenarios that we experience day to day. Many employers today are looking for people who can analyze situations, solve problems, exercise judgment, good judgment, and think critically. Yet, we are now entering into the age of artificial intelligence. While AI creates enormous opportunities, it also presents new challenges. We must ensure that people are still learning how to think, and just as Mr. Gill said, that it is an enhancement to our productivity and not a replacement of human thinking. And we also need to look at how we're finding the answers to the problems in the workplace, because whilst I am totally on board with AI, my daughter, Kristen Hamal, who's here in the audience, is also something of a major tech geek. And I'm open to it, I read it, but I am adamant that you have to be able to evaluate what it presents. Just in the initial speech, right, I felt it sounded very robotic. So of course I had to record myself speaking yesterday to get this version of the speech, right? As employers and educators and leaders, imagine the challenge of teachers in this new world. How will they be able to assess when homework is given and the student leaves the classroom, and when they come back that it's not actually as a result of their Google search and the AI interpretation of that search, right? And of course, business leaders, this is the challenge that we will need to address together. What we have learned in our own business. Over the past few years, we've spent a great deal of time reflecting on these new realities. And one of the biggest decisions we made was to invest more intentionally in our people. As Mr. Gill said, we have to recognize that ongoing training is very much a requirement to run a successful organization in this new era. We did highlight, after celebrating our 25th anniversary in 2023, we highlighted that the year 2025 would have been the year of training. However, due to the disruptive nature of the turnover, we were not able to successfully achieve that. This year, I'm happy to say that we have at least made some headway in that regard and had formal training sessions available through various platforms such as Coursera, which I happened to hear Mr. Rolf Phillips, Managing Director of Bank of St. Lucia, speak about. So we have had that considerate and deliberate effort to improve in that regard. Now, recently, for the first time in 28 years of operating a business, we hired a qualified human resource manager. And that is not because we were not attempting to. Over the years, we've advertised many times. We've reviewed applications, and unfortunately, we have never been able to place a human resource manager. That became an even more critical decision when we took over operation of the Builder's Choice group of companies in late 2017. Now, Mrs. Martina Donnelly, who's here with us in the audience, joined our organization after a distinguished career in banking and with a master's degree that she obtained in 2018 in human resource development. I can honestly say that her arrival, which has only been over the last month, has given us a fresh perspective. She understands people, she understands organizational culture, she understands the challenges facing modern employers. And she has helped us identify practical ways to address many of the issues we've experienced over the years, to the point that in regard to our training initiatives, a space that I had described to her as a flex space for future development, she said a few days later, she's like, Deb, you said this space, you're not sure what you're going to do with it. Let us put up partitions and have a new lunchroom at the former Builder's Choice Beanfield location and a large training conference room, because we have outgrown our boardroom. And this will allow us immediately, despite our advancements and our project to expand overhead, which we're very, very proud of, the opportunity to complete the building that was designed and built, approved in 2004, and actually we gained new approvals. It took maybe 2 years to do so because it was treated as an entirely new building. So that is a project that we will be embarking on later this year, and we will actually complete the True Value commercial facility. So notwithstanding she knows of the plan, she actually suggested that we take the initiative and create that space now to allow her the ability to engage in more formalized training of team members. Building the next generation of leaders. One of the things we have had to acknowledge is that we have the leadership gaps. Despite the fact that we would say we started with a handful of staff members, maybe at the point in 2008, after occupying a new building for only 2 years, we met and surpassed our projected cash flow improvements, right, with a skeletal team of 16 individuals. We are now at 45 at True Value, and we operate as a headquarters location for the subsidiary companies. But the question, the values and philosophies that built our company got us from a small startup operation renting warehouse space to the group of companies we are today. But the question now becomes, how do we transfer those values to the next generation? How do we explain not only what we do, but why we do it? How do we preserve the culture that helped create the success? Recently, I attended the launch of the Bank of St. Lucia's story project. One thing that impressed me was their focus on telling their story, helping new employees understand where the organization came from. Mr. Phillips has stated that this production and all of the commercials will be used as part of their onboarding process going forward. So it means that you're allowing new team members to connect with the origins, the challenges, the successes, and navigating a period of great change. I was even surprised when I viewed the initial launch, the recording, even having been a customer of Bank of St. Lucia for too many years, 25 years plus. I was very surprised to really understand from going from an indigenous bank to, of course, the merger between SLDB and to the conglomerate entity that operates regionally, at the highest levels in the region. So we really are using that as well because we have used footage. We are now using a generalized platform where we can host all of our videos. So we have the True Value story, etc. And of course, we can learn from other business organizations that recognize the challenges and are instituting those kind of strategic approaches to overcoming those challenges. It made us realize that we need to do even more. And I think it's that openness, that flexibility, that understanding, that recognition that, hey, whilst it may have worked for us, we have to look at what the changing environment presents and how we can adapt to that environment. This is why we are now exploring ways to use our own story and our journey as part of our onboarding process. People connect to these stories, and people need to understand the purpose behind what we do. The human relationship between employer and employee. Now, that's another one that I can say I'm a personal advocate over many, many years. I have believed generally and genuinely that for you to promote success in any business organization, you must recognize first and foremost the groups of individuals that promote your success. And of course, we all know that's first and foremost our customers. For us to give the level of customer service excellence that we speak of and we pride ourselves in, we would need to know that we have happy team members. Of course, for us to survive in business, we need to also have happy bankers and happy suppliers. As simplistic as it may sound, when you understand the facets of ensuring that there's continuous evaluation of where we are as to where we want to be, it means that you are doing what is needed to remain relevant in your industry, and you're applying and replicating those approaches and those standards to every area of the primary business and into the other businesses. There's a narrative that I see increasingly on social media, and we've all heard it. Life is short, which I agree. I mean, especially now in my, 50s, mid-50s, you start thinking, we lost my mom, who was a major business personality 4 years ago at the age of 73. Life is indeed very short. You only live once, YOLO. If you die tomorrow, your employer will replace you the next day, okay? So these are memes that you will see circulating on social media. Now, whilst there may be elements of truth in that statement, organizations must continue to operate. Business continuity is important. And I think that the narrative misses something also very important. If we think of the human condition and we think of our own personal desires, whether it is to be the best mother that we can be, to be a provider for our families, to be, someone who has a career path and has shown advancement in everything that they have chosen to do, we still have a responsibility to each other. Reasonably, we would say that as much as we would grieve the passing of a teammate, maybe close half day for a funeral service, give support to the family members. But do we recognize what it would mean for the company to stop? A company of 500 people, what does that mean about our understanding of humanity as an employee and what it means for us to uphold and not look at as our employer as someone that it's us against them, but rather as a partner in everything that we do? And I think that is where the narrative must change. We must get back to that period of, yes, showing genuine appreciation for the contributions made by every single valued team member, but also that we are appreciated for the opportunities provided, et cetera. So I do recognize that is a major sort of issue of contention, but I also think the proliferation of accessing those kind of memes and that kind of information is something that has affected the psyche of our young employee. Now, that is why, of course, I went on to say that the employer values the employee and should never be viewed, the relationship should never be viewed as transactional. I can only imagine that even at 65 years, the St. Lucia Employers Federation, in this new period of even draft legislation or amendments to existing labor code legislation, is navigating. And in conversations I've had with Cornelia, she has given an indication of some of the considerations that an employer in this era must understand, even if it may seem, in my view, to a misinterpretation of labor code policies, right? So she is giving us the experiences that are happening even at a tribunal level, which places us in the position, again, with our now 4-person HR team to navigate those issues and to be aware of them. So we will always accept that there is a human side to business. When a team member suffers, we care. When a team member achieves success, we celebrate. And of course, when a team member faces hardship, we sympathize. Good employers genuinely care about their people. I think that we need to rebuild that understanding of the relationship and what it should be. What has guided us for 28 years, if there is one principle that has guided our organization for nearly 3 decades, it is this: people help to create the success, and success should benefit people. That philosophy has influenced many of the decisions we have made over the years. It is why we introduced a subsidized lunch program as far back as 2005. And I always say when I speak that I've held on dearly to that program, despite ever-changing costs of production, staffing costs, and of course, costs of inputs. So it is why it still exists today, 21 years later. It's also why we engage in the team building activities. We organize family events. One such event is just in the organization stages, and it should take place later this month, and that would be our Family Fun Day. And this year, we're hoping to bring together what would be 100 employees and their significant others and their family members. And okay, I have to share this little story. I hope I'm not running out of time, Cornelia. When I was a child, I was born in St. Lucia, but raised in Seattle, Washington. So my father was a lab technician with Northgate Hospital, and my mom was a nurse midwife with another nursing home. And Northgate Hospital engaged all team members. I don't know how they did it when you think about essential services. So I guess there must have been a skeletal staff at the hospital. But every summer, there was a day that family members came together with the employees in a big activity that always impressed. I mean, imagine as a child, you're engaging in the little games and everybody has a potluck kind of approach. And I think if it made that kind of impression on me, just imagine that we work together. Sometimes we never see the family member. We may not appreciate that one of our team members has a child that is fully disabled. And again, these things resonate. We have had very, very good experiences, and now bringing in the entire team, it means that we will have a better appreciation of what our construction arm of the company does compared to maybe our admin office, et cetera. And that is the aim of those kind of initiatives. So we also act as financial advisors to our employees. And Mrs. Donnelly has given me the commitment that I will no longer have to engage in all of these sessions. And what it looks like is just someone comes in, admin brings a job letter for a microfinance institution and other companies I will not name. And I will say to them that whilst I will have to sign the job letter, I will give them the whole spiel. 99% of the time, that's why we don't have any remittances to any of them, they will agree and understand, and even to the point that if it means looking at that washing machine, getting the best cash price on it, and then doing a salary deduction, we do that. We go as far as doing that. So when we say we care about our team, we actually mean it. It shows up in our actions and not just in our words. Now, as I conclude today, I return to the title of this presentation. Leading the modern workplace environment there is no single formula. There are no perfect answers. But I do believe there are certain things we know for sure. The workplace will continue to evolve. Technology will continue to advance. Employee expectations will continue to change. And leaders will continue to need to adapt. We'll need to continue adapting. The organizations that succeed will be those that remain willing to learn, willing to listen, willing to evolve, and willing to continue investing in our people. Because no matter how much technology changes, leadership will always remain a human responsibility. A culture, and the culture will always remain a human outcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tobia, for those remarks. Don't go too far because right now we have a question and answer segment. If you do have any questions for our featured speaker, the mic is in the back, so you could pose a question to her. Going once. Going twice. All right, I think she did a good job. Give her another round of applause. And the keynote address will be delivered by Dr. Winston Anderson. He is the Regional Managing Director for Sandals Resorts' Eastern Caribbean portfolio and has oversight for 8 resorts on 5 islands, including St. Lucia, Antigua, Barbados, Grenada, and St. Vincent and the Grenadines. He is a well-respected hotelier who has been a key member of the St. Lucia Hospitality and Tourism Association for many years, and he is the current chairman of the SLHTA's Tourism Enhancement Fund. Winston also sits on several other boards and committees. Born in beautiful Coopers Hill, Portland, Jamaica, Winston started his hospitality journey at the Pegasus Hotel in Kingston and was soon offered a scholarship with the Trust House Fort Hotels, where he received training in food and beverage and general operations. Upon his return to Pegasus, he helped in the transformation of the hotel and oversaw all the major functions and state banquets, catering to 3 U.S. presidents, the Queen of England, and several other heads of states, including Nelson Mandela. He eventually left Trust House Fort and joined Sandals Ochi as its food and beverage manager. From Ochi, Winston was sent to St. Lucia over 30 years ago, shortly after Sandals acquired its first property on island, and that, of course, is Sandals Regency Le Toc, and was a key part of the management team that was involved in the construction and opening of that hotel. Shortly after, he was pulled into assisting with the opening of Sandals Halcyon. He has since overseen the development and opening of Grenada, St. Vincent, and Barbados. Throughout his journey, Winston has worked in numerous islands across the region and sees himself as a true Caribbean national. However, the pull of St. Lucia was too strong, and he soon returned to the island, and he has remained here ever since. In fact, he often says that having spent the majority of his life in St. Lucia as opposed to his native Jamaica, he is a proud St. Lucian. Winston displays a transformational leadership style and has always had an open door policy. His team will tell you that he transitions seamlessly from managing director to advisor to confidant, father figure, disciplinarian, therapist, and philanthropist in order to ensure that they and his guests receive the very best that he can give. His job aside, Winston also found time to rack up his academic accolades and is a holder of a bachelor's degree in business management, a bachelor's degree in behavioral science, a master's degree in management, a doctorate in management, and an honorary doctorate in leadership and community work. Aside from his role at Sandals, Winston is affiliated with several community-driven projects and gives of his time freely in supporting and creating avenues of hope for our youth. He also actively supports Faces of Cancer, Safe Spaces, and many other community projects in St. Lucia. He is always first in line to champion the cause of the Sandals Foundation, and he has used his considerable influence to initiate several projects geared at uplifting the disadvantaged youth in St. Lucia. As he reflects on his over 39 years in hospitality and as part of the Sandals family, Winston has no hesitation in identifying his most treasured accomplishments as being his ability to contribute to, influence, and guide the development of those around him. To deliver the keynote address, join me in welcoming Dr. Winston Anderson.
Thank you very much. It's always fun that you have to put the mic. That's all. Mr. President, let me first take the opportunity to thank you, to commend you for 20 years of outstanding contributions to the Employers Federation. I can surely attest also that over those years, you have guided us, you have supported us, and I heard you mention earlier that this is your last. I would just want to say that whoever is asked to fit that shoe, you've made it such a huge one that I would not want to be in that person's position at all. Also, our feature speaker. This morning, both our president and feature speaker have touched on the core of what the theme is about today. So my role has become much easier because I will just be echoing the sentiments that you both put. But please allow me to adopt the protocol that has already been established. I cannot imagine a more important topic for us as employers and as leaders to be discussing at this point and in this time. And that is managing employees in today's workplace, leadership, accountability, and the new workforce realities. I think each of us can agree that the workforce has changed. Customers' expectations have changed. Technology has changed. And the pace of disruption continues to accelerate those changes. our ability to effectively confront these changes will be the difference between our success or our failure. And I dare say to all of us here today that failure cannot be an option for any of us. Madam Executive Director, members of the St. Lucia Employers Federation, distinguished business leaders, colleagues, members of the private sector, or human resource professionals that are here today, other invited guests, I say to you that it is indeed my honor to share a few thoughts with you today. Each leader, if you ask them, probably has a different take on how to manage today's workforce. Many would probably moan about Generation Z and the work ethic of the younger workforce. Many of us simply cannot understand the ease with which some members of the new workforce find it easy to call out, or just not show up, or to show up in shadow, a term that they themselves proudly use. And then they barely become productive that day. But I will share with all of you this morning that contrary to what a lot of us believe, this is not just a Generation Z issue, because a recent survey showed that the gap actually between Gen Zs and millennials is very narrow. And in fact, they have much in common with respect to the issues that impacts them. So considering that collectively, and I think in all of our work environment, Gen Zs and millennials make up the majority of the workforce, then this means that this is something worth paying serious attention to. I want to say to all of us here today that as we try to find the best way forward, we cannot look only at the challenges of the younger workforce. We also need to look inwardly, and we need to ask ourselves whether we have adapted sufficiently to allow us to engage with them and to turn them into performing assets. I know that the first thing we will say is easier said than done. But just like many of you, or maybe all of you, this is a journey that my entire team and I have been on for the past few years. It is not easy, but along the way, I have discovered some important truths, and I would like to share some of those with you today. Let us first look at what we face in the New World Order. Costs are rising. Talent is more mobile. Employees are asking different questions. Customers are expecting more. Technology is transforming business models. Supply chains are more vulnerable. And climate events are more disruptive. What that says to us is that the margin for weak leadership has become very small. And in fact, I would say it is no longer an option. In this environment, the companies that will succeed, and our president alluded to that, are not necessarily the largest or the oldest. The companies that will succeed are those that can attract talent, develop talent, retain talent, inspire performance, and build cultures of trust and accountability. This, my friends, is the new competitive advantage that we face today. So how do we do that? Well, we do that by building and nurturing a strong community within our work environment, but also outside our organization by touching the very communities in which our people live and grow their families. Our executive chairman, Mr. Adam Stewart, has a core belief that continues to drive our brand every single day in everything we do. He believes that while you build the most amazing buildings and the most beautiful resorts or factories or whatever enterprise, all that means nothing unless you can humanize the concrete. What does it mean by that? That means that the core of any successful businesses lies in its people. According to a former senior vice president of Apple, her name is Angela Arendt, she says, everyone talks about building relationship with your customer. I think you need to build one with your employees first. It is a principle that is not limited to tourism or hospitality. It applies to every single enterprise represented in this room today. What your customers experience is not your strategic plan. What they experience is your people. They experience your culture. Your people reflect who you are as a leader and who you are as a business. What kind of culture we create is the evidence of the type of leaders that we are. Sounds a lot, right? It is. But I took a quote from Richard Branson, and this is what he had to share. He said that there is no magic formula to great company culture. The key is to treat your staff how you would want to be treated. But, my friends, for me personally, I want to take it a bit further. And I think today's generation and workforce requires us to take it a bit further. I would say, treat them the way they want to be treated, because everyone is different. And if we are to treat people how they want to be treated, then we need to put in the work as leaders. We need to connect with our teams. Most importantly, we need to build relationships. How much do we really prioritize building strong employee relationship? How much is that placed in our strategic business plan each year? These are two concepts we need to keep in mind: building a community and building relationships. Always remember, the way your employees feel is ultimately what they will pass on to the customers. And if the employees do not feel valued, neither will be our customers. There was a time when many organizations believed that providing employment alone was enough to command loyalty. Ladies and gentlemen, that time has passed. Today's employees still value opportunity, but they also value purpose. They value fairness, growth, flexibility, respect, trust, and they value credible leadership. They are concerned about whether they have a future in the organization. They want their work to have meaning. They expect their performance to be rewarded fairly. They want leaders who communicate honestly. They're asking whether the company is prepared to invest in their development. These are not soft issues, ladies and gents. These are hard business decisions. But they do affect productivity. They affect retention. They affect service quality. They affect our reputation. They affect customer loyalty. And yes, they affect profitability. So how do we rise to meet these challenges? Well, one approach that I have found to be effective is inclusive leadership. Let's look at the hallmark of inclusive leadership. And I start by, first one, is create an environment where employees can communicate, they can collaborate, and very importantly, the opportunity for them to innovate without having to worry about being looked upon, being criticized, being dismissed, or being punished. 2, trust and psychological safety are very, very important. And you build that by connecting with your employees. 3, foster a socially aware environment and listen to your employees. Let them know that they are heard and valued and that they belong. We must create an environment where they feel that their opinions matters. Let us, as leaders, as business owners, encourage ideas and be bold enough to seek out the talent amongst our staff. And when we find those talent, let us utilize them. 4, recognize their efforts. At Sandals, we have debated many times what form recognition may take. The truth is, it's important, but it does not always have to be financial. Every single one, including all of us in this room, appreciates praise and acknowledgement, especially our new generation. 5, how often do we as leaders take time to simply say, good job? Just remember, recognition breeds commitment. And when employees feel truly valued, their dedication to the company doesn't just grow. In fact, it thrives. And finally, something that, quite honestly, is very, very close to my heart is offer mentorship and coaching to everyone, including your leaders and middle managers, and encourage, and I will say that again, encourage and promote continuous learning. This is something that we have made tremendous investment in through our Sandals Corporate University. And I can share with you today, ladies and gents, that the return on investment has been amazing. By investing in these things, you start to build the community within. We must then provide that community that we build with something to aspire to. We need to share our goals with them and make them feel included. And when I said that, this reminds me of a story that I often relate to, and it goes that when President John F. Kennedy once visited NASA Space Center, he had a chat with a janitor. So he asked the janitor what he did there. And the janitor replied to the president, that, sir, I'm here helping to put a man on the moon. That janitor was invested in the mission. He was aligned with the vision. We need to get our people invested in the mission. And to do that, we need to communicate with clarity. People cannot perform against a standard they do not understand. They cannot be accountable for expectations that were never properly communicated to them. They cannot deliver excellence consistently in systems that are confused, inconsistent, or poorly led. As business leaders and owners, we must be clear about where we're going, what we expect, what we value, and what we will not compromise on. Clarity, my friends, is one of the most important tools of leadership in today's environment. Because clarity reduces confusion. Clarity builds confidence. Clarity strengthens accountability. Clarity allows people to align their effort with the mission of the organization. And that brings me to another very important concept, and that is alignment. Management expert Jim Collins said that building a visionary company requires 1% vision and 99% alignment. And unless your people are aligned with the company culture, its aspiration and its goal, then, my friends, you can work until the cow comes home. You will never be able to move your company forward. According to Collins, creating alignment is a two-part process. First, we need to identify the misalignments that exist in the organization. And the only way we can do that is by talking to people and getting input and trying to answer the question. If these are our core values and the reason we exist, what are the obstacles that get in our way? The truth is, sometimes you don't need to push someone to grow. In fact, you just need to remove the obstacle that's blocking them from growing. Second, we have to create the new alignment. What that comes down to is taking action. Not just talking about the great things that we're going to do, but in fact, doing them. Creating an opportunity for team members to share their thoughts and then, if practical, act on them. I've always said and believe that the best solution sometimes comes from the people on the ground and those in the middle of it. But we will never learn of it if we do not create an environment that people feel and able to communicate and that they feel that they can contribute. In creating alignment, we can refer to motivational guru, his name is Ziegler. He tells us that according to research, workers have 3 prime needs. 1, interest in work. 2, recognition for doing a good job and being let in on things that are going on in your company. These are some of the same concepts that we have spoken about earlier, and our featured speaker and Mr. President have mentioned. When I spoke earlier of inclusive leadership, I expressed how important it is for leaders to develop talent. Indeed, it is a major pillar upon which my organization operates. And why? Because businesses can no longer view training as an expense item, but rather it must be seen as a critical investment. In fact, underinvestment in people is one of the most costly decisions any organization can make in these days. When people are not trained, service declines. Errors will increase. Customers will become frustrated and leave you. Morale will weaken. Turnover will rise. And guess what? The organization pays the price. Through our Sanders Corporate University, team members from across the region have been given opportunities to train, to certify, to grow, and to advance. This is a strategy that we embrace. It is how we build capability at scale. It is how we strengthen service consistency. It is how we prepare the next generation of leaders. I want to today encourage every business in St. Lucia to strive to adopt and to practice that mindset. Yes, I understand that not every one of us will build a corporate university, but every single one of us must build within our organization, no matter how big, no matter how small, a learning culture. And I want to commend that you mentioned earlier about building a learning culture within the organization. A learning culture says to our employees that your growth matters. This is especially important at the supervisory level and middle managers. Many organizations promote their best technical people and assume that they will automatically become strong leaders. But as we know it, ladies and gents, technical competence and leadership competence are not the same thing. The best employee in a department does not automatically become the best supervisor. And it's a mistake that all of us continuously make, right? Leadership requires communication. It requires judgment. It requires emotional intelligence, conflict management, discipline, fairness, and it requires courage. If we do not prepare our supervisors or middle managers to lead, we should not be surprised when teams become frustrated, performance becomes inconsistent, and good people leave us. And ladies and gentlemen, I am of the belief always that employees do not leave companies. In reality, people leave people. People leave when they feel undervalued. People avoid spaces where they do not feel respected. I want to go back to, and you can see that I love him, I love his quote. He's a visionary. He's a maverick. I just love him, and he reminds me to a large extent of our late founder, who was one of the greatest visionary, boldest person, willing to take chances, but most importantly, believed strongly in the development of people, and more so, Caribbean nationals. So I mentioned Richard Branson again, and this is a mantra of mine also. So he says that train people well enough so that they can leave, and people will go after them. But treat them well enough that they will not want to go despite what they're given. And I really, truly want to stress on that one. Do not be afraid to train your people. Do not be afraid to develop them and just understand that, yes, the competitor will come after them. But if you treat them so well, they won't go anywhere at all. All right? We must be honest about the pressures our employees face. Many workers are managing financial stress, family responsibilities, transportation challenges, health concerns, emotional strains, and uncertainty about the future. Employers cannot solve every personal problem, but we cannot lead effectively if we pretend that these realities do not enter our workplace. The modern workplace requires more effective, involved, and intentional management. It requires leaders who can be firm without being harsh, fair without being indecisive, compassionate without being permissive, ambitious without being exploitative, human without lowering your standards. I know we all know this, but I want to stress this, that leadership is not built about a title or designation. It is built on impact. It is about being involved and being present. Because a leader who listens may very well prevent a resignation. A leader who notices may prevent a crisis. A leader who communicates clearly may prevent a conflict. A leader who treats people fairly may prevent cynicism. When team members believe in and trust their leaders, then the other things will fall in line. That brings me to a very important thing, accountability. I think accountability is often misunderstood. It is too often treated as punishment, blame, or discipline after failure. But accountability, properly understood, means ownership. It begins with leadership. So, before we ask whether the employee performed, we must ask whether the standards were clear, whether the tools to perform the job were available, whether the training was provided, whether the supervisor or middle manager was competent, whether performance was measured fairly, and whether correction happened early. That does not excuse for poor performance. It strengthens the integrity of the performance conversation. Employees must be accountable for their conduct, their productivity, their attitude, and their willingness to learn. But leaders must be accountable for the environment in which performance is expected. We cannot, ladies and gents, demand accountability from our employees while practicing inconsistency at our leadership level. We cannot demand discipline while we're accommodating and tolerating favoritism in the workplace. We cannot demand loyalty while failing to communicate honestly. And we cannot demand excellence without while under-investing in the training and development of our people. We cannot demand commitment while offering no visible path and growth. St. Lucia's competitiveness will not be determined only by our natural beauty. And as you heard earlier, I am a proud St. Lucian. And so I am the first, right, to defend its natural beauty, right? But we cannot and will never continue to compete on only that, or tax policies, infrastructure, or investment incentives. They're all important. It will also be determined to a large extent by the quality of our workforce and the quality of our leadership. We must build a national culture where productivity matters, where service matters, where training matters, where punctuality matters, where standards matters, where business viability matters, where employee dignity matters, where young people see work not only as an income, but as a pathway to purpose and to progress. The St. Lucia Employees Federation has a critical role to play in that national agenda. I know that you will continue to advocate for an environment in which businesses can survive, grow, and create jobs. But I also want to encourage you that you must continue to help lead a new conversation about responsible enterprise, workplace excellence, productivity, and the future of work. Business is not only about our financial footprints, ladies and gents. It must also be an engine of national development. We have talked about building community inside the workplace. So let's now turn to how we make a difference on the outside communities. I will share with you that through the Sandals Foundation and other regional initiatives, our company has supported education, youth development, skills training, environmental protection, and local sourcing across the Caribbean. These efforts reflect a belief that businesses, success, and community progress are connected. Because when schools are stronger, the future workplace is stronger. When communities are stronger, employees are stronger. When local suppliers are stronger, businesses are stronger. When young people are trained and mentored, the nation becomes stronger. Community dynamics do not suddenly disappear when people come to work. It's a reality that they carry and live with. How we tap into that and use that to create high team morale and a positive work environment is key. But even as we strive to humanize the workplace, we must also acknowledge how technology is reshaping that future, going back to what was said earlier. Artificial intelligence, automation, digital platforms, and data systems are changing the way we work. Yes, some jobs will change. Some tasks will disappear. New skills will be required. The organization that adapt will gain speed, efficiency, and insight. Those that resist will fall behind and maybe diminish. But let me be very, very clear. Technology, ladies and gents, will not replace the need for leadership. It will not replace judgment. It will not replace ethics. It will not replace empathy. It will not replace the human connection at the heart of every single service connection. In hospitality, or in fact, any businesses here today, technology can and will improve the experience, but it can never, ever replace the authentic Caribbean warmth that we bring to our customers and our people. It cannot replace the team member who recognizes an unspoken need. It cannot replace the supervisor who motivates a tired team. It cannot replace the leader who gives people confidence when conditions are difficult. The future, ladies and gents, I think belongs to organizations that are able and willing to combine technology with humanity. It belongs to leaders who understand that digital transformation must be matched by human transformation. It belongs to companies that invest in systems and people at the same time. So the question now is, what should the workplace look and feel like? And I see what managing people requires now. So I think it should be a place where leaders listen actively and genuinely connect with their people. It should be fueled by open and clear communication from top to bottom and vice versa. There should be a clear vision where team members understand how their daily tasks contribute to the bigger picture. It should be a place where innovation is celebrated and where our employees should feel comfortable contributing ideas without thinking that they would be neglected or dismissed. It is a place where respect should be shown both ways. There should be meaningful rewards, both large and small, where successes are celebrated, and this can range in many forms, whether it be the packages, bonuses, or a simple public or personal expression of gratitude and thanks. It should be a place where people feel they can grow, where their professional development is considered, and where they are given the tools and resources to be at their very best. We must, ladies and gents, encourage work-life balance. Burnout, my friends, is a real thing. Poor scheduling can adversely impact a team member's family life. We need to pay more attention to these areas. Happy, healthy team members contribute to a positive work environment. And of course, you want to have a vibrant environment, and today's millennials and Gen Zs are expecting that. So we can go as far as creating colors, maybe reinforcing messages on your walls, have monitors, and all of the things that impact our young generation. Engage in activities, etc. But despite the importance and the value of all of these, I want to say that none of them is stronger than connections with your people. My colleagues and friends, this is not a moment for doubt or fear. People have always changed. Markets have always changed. Technology has always changed. The responsibility of leadership is to move the organization forward through those changes. As I look around me, and a number of you I know very well, I see leaders who I am confident. I see HR practitioners who I'm confident can rise to the challenge. So the truth is, despite all of these challenges, I see a bright future ahead for St. Lucia and for St. Lucia businesses. I see leaders who appreciate that when you promote from within, you are building the country. I see here organizations that are committed to fairness and standards, and that builds the country also. Every business that invests in community is, in fact, building our beautiful country. I say, may the St. Lucia Employers Federation continue to be a strong voice for enterprise, for productivity, for fairness, and for national progress. May all of us, ladies and gents, leave this AGM committed not only to managing employees, but most importantly, to developing people. Not only to protecting our businesses, but to building institutions. Not only to adapting to change, but to be the leader of those change. And may we never forget that the true measure of leadership is not only what we build, but it is who we build. As I close, I want to leave you with this message from John Quincy Adams. And it says, if your action inspires others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, then you are a leader of tomorrow's generation. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and may God bless you.
Thank you, Dr. Anderson, for this really in-depth keynote address. We now open the floor for any questions that you may have for Dr. Anderson. Comments, questions, anything you'd like to share? Okay, I don't believe there is. We now move on. Give another round of applause to our keynote speaker as well as Mrs. Tobia. Thank you for addressing us today. We now move on to the presentation of tokens of appreciation to the guest speakers, and I call on the Executive Director, Mrs. Cornelia. So we're going to start with Dr. Anderson. And of course, Mrs. Tobia. We'll now move into the presentation of Member Recognition Awards, and Ms. Jean-Baptiste will take it from here.
Ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, friends, I will adopt the protocol that has been so appropriately established and say good morning. This section brings me great pleasure and a bit of disappointment because there's some persons who gave a commitment to be here, should have been here, are not, but I think we can move ahead and recognize them anyhow. So we've decided, like we did last year, to recognize and award some of our members who have been, we call them our caregivers, our champions, who have in one way, shape, or form supported us and our initiatives between last year and this year. And last year, those of you who were there, you would have recalled we did a few awards, and this year we definitely found it appropriate to do so. So firstly, this year, we would like to give a dependability award to a member. The Dependability Award recognizes an organization whose consistent support and partnership have made a meaningful, let me say, absolutely meaningful contribution to the work of the Federation. Over the past year, many of our meetings, breakfast sessions, consultations, and many engagements have taken place in spaces that encouraged dialogue, learning, and collaboration. And many of you here have joined us for these sessions. While those events have carried the Federation's name, they were made possible through the support of partners who quietly and consistently stood with us behind the scenes. Today's recipient, ladies and gentlemen, has been one of those partners. Through their responsiveness, professionalism, flexibility, and continued willingness to support our initiatives, they have helped create opportunities for every one of our members to connect, to learn, to engage with one another. Their contribution has extended beyond simply providing a venue. They have been a reliable partner in helping the Federation deliver value to its members and strengthen the employer community. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in congratulating Coco Palm Resort, recipient of the Dependability Award, Simone. Yeah, thank you. Next, we move to the Renewed Commitment Award. This award recognizes an organization whose recent engagement and support have strengthened the Federation and reinforced the value of working together to advance the interests of employers. As you know, strong organizations are built on strong relationships. While levels of engagement will naturally evolve over time, there is always value in organizations that choose to become more involved, more visible, more invested in the collective success of the community. While there are many we could have chosen today, today's recipient has demonstrated that commitment through its growing support of Federation initiatives and its willingness to contribute to the work and development of the Federation without fail, ladies and gentlemen. Their engagement serves as a reminder that a strong foundation is built not only through membership, but through active participation and active support. It is therefore my absolute pleasure to recognize Lubeco Limited for its valued support, renewed engagement, and contribution to the strengthening of the collective voice of employers. Mr. Jeffrey Allen is not here today, but Sima, thank you very much. And lastly, again, this is one award that when we sat and thought about it, we wished that we could hand out so many more. This is the Excellence in Collaboration Award. The Excellence in Collaboration Award recognizes organizations that exemplify the power of collaboration through partnership, engagement, and a shared commitment to collective progress. Those of you who've been with us for some time, you would understand and know that the work of the Federation is strengthened by organizations and members that do more than simply hold membership status, but they participate, they contribute, they share perspectives, they support initiatives, and consistently answer the call to engage. Their presence helps to enrich discussions, strengthen advocacy efforts, and build a strong community presence of the Federation. Today's recipients have absolutely distinguished themselves through their continued involvement in Federation activities and their willingness to work alongside fellow employers in advancing common goals. Their support demonstrates that meaningful progress is achieved when organizations come together, share ideas, and contribute to a collective vision for the future of work and enterprises in St. Lucia. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in congratulating MNC Group of Companies. Ms. Flosak is not here today. She was last year. She's not here today, so we'll have to deliver. Join me in congratulating St. Lucia Development Bank, Ms. Nancy Joseph. Thank you very much, Ms. Joseph. Thank you. Lucilek, Kadia, Amy. And last, but certainly not least, automotive art. Mr. Anatol indicated earlier that he was caught up and may not have been able to join us, but we recognized him. But as I said, it is certainly not the list that we would have liked. There's so many more, and I look across the room and I could just rattle off names. I see Richard, I have to put you on the scene, Richard Moplezi, C.O. Williams Group of Companies, SLHTA, Sea Island Cotton, True Value, and they're there in full numbers today, all four of you. Thank you so very much, CIBC. And you know, there's so many more not in the room, but we really appreciate you. And these are just small tokens of our appreciation, our way of giving back to you for your year of support. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Baptist. And to deliver the vote of thanks for the open session, help me welcome Ms. Shimmer Falavius.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, apologies. I don't know why. Perhaps it's the stunning red dress. I forgot to acknowledge HR Wise. I forgot for Excellence in Collaboration Award. Thank you so much, Ms. Paul. You and your team have made it happen.
President of the St. Lucia Employers Federation, members of the Board of Directors, distinguished guest speakers, sponsors, members, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is my privilege to deliver the vote of thanks on behalf of the Board of Directors and the Secretariat of the St. Lucia Employers Federation. As we bring the open session of our 65th annual general meeting to a close, we do so with a renewed appreciation for the importance of leadership, collaboration, and partnership in strengthening our workplaces and business community. Our sincere thanks first go to our distinguished guest speakers. To Mrs. Deborah Tobier, thank you for sharing your leadership journey and for reminding us that building successful organizations begins with investing in people, cultivating strong workplace cultures, and leading with purpose. To Dr. Winston Anderson, thank you for your insightful keynote address and for challenging us to think differently about leadership, accountability, and realities of managing today's workforce. Your experience and practical perspective have given us much to reflect upon as we continue to respond to evolving workplace environment. Join me once again in thanking both of our speakers for their generous contributions to today's program. I also wish to acknowledge our valued sponsors. Thank you very much for showing up for us. Your support has helped make today's annual general meeting possible and reflects your confidence in the work of the Federation and the important role it continues to play in representing and supporting employers in St. Lucia. We are sincerely grateful for your partnership and investment in this milestone event. To our members, thank you for your continued commitment to the Federation and for the overwhelming response to this year's annual general meeting. Your participation, engagement, and willingness to contribute to discussions such as these strengthen not only the Federation, but wider employer community. To our invited guests and stakeholders, thank you for joining us and for the continued collaboration that enables us to advance issues of national importance affecting employers, workplaces, and development of our country. I also wish to express appreciation to the President, Mr. Callistus Vern-Gill. We wish to thank him from the board we should also thank the board for their guidance, the commitment throughout the year, the progress reflected in today's annual report, and the Federation's strengthened position is the result of a shared vision and the collective commitment of the board, the executive director, the secretariat, and our members. To our executive director and the secretariat team, thank you for the considerable planning, consideration, and hard work that has gone into organizing today's meetings and the many initiatives undertaken throughout the past year. Events of this nature require countless hours of preparation behind the scenes, and your dedication has not gone unnoticed. Finally, to everyone who has contributed in ways both visible and unseen, including our technical support personnel, the management and staff of Harbor Club, the SLHTA, and all those who have worked to ensure the success of today's proceedings, please accept our sincere appreciation. As we celebrate 65 years of representing and supporting employers in St. Lucia, may the conversations we have shared today inspire us to lead with purpose, strengthen our workplaces, and continue working together to advance the interests of employers and the wider business community. Thank you all for your presence, your participation, and continued support of the St. Lucia Employers Federation. I wish you every success as you continue to lead your organizations, serve your communities, and contribute to the development of St. Lucia. Thank you.